Hi friends, in the last session we have discussed that concept called the packages. Okay, we discussed that concept is packages. So let me remind the previous session and today I am going to start oops concepts. Okay, today I am going to start oops. Okay, let me remind first last session and I will start oops concept. So in the last session we discussed that packages. Okay, we discussed that concept is packages. So normally package is nothing but it is an encapsulated mechanism to group related modules into a single unit. Okay, it is an encapsulated mechanism to group related modules into a single unit. Okay, next, package is nothing but a folder or a directory. Okay, make sure package is nothing but folder or directory which represents collection of Python modules. Nothing but suppose I'm going where Python is installed. Okay, let me go where Python is installed. Somewhere Python is installed. Okay, I'm not getting where it is. Suppose if you observe here .py with extension .py file, I mean names. So if they are related into a single unit is nothing but what related into single unit is nothing but what a package. So inside package is totally .py files are there. So then we can say as a package. Okay, package is nothing but a folder or directory. Okay, so a folder or directory. So we can say this one as if you open this Windows. So inside how many files are there? Not mandatory, but we can say this is a folder or a directory. Okay, folder or directory, right? Next, any folder or directory contains underscore 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 .py file is considered as a Python package. Okay, is considered as a Python package. So this file can be empty. Okay, this file can be empty. A package can contain subpackage also. Okay, package can contain subpackage also. That means a directory, a folder contain another folder also inside. So normally there is a possible, right? So if you open big data projects, so inside another big data project. So just like this, a folder can contains another folder, just like a package can contain sub package also. Okay, next, observe here, this is what we discussed in the last session. Next, so advantages of package is nothing but we can resolve naming conflicts. Okay, we can resolve naming conflicts. How we can resolve naming conflicts means if you are having more file names inside package and sub package, so that we can fetching by that we can fetch. Okay, that we can fetch by using package, I mean naming concepts, by using in this way. Okay, we can identify our components uniquely. Okay, we can identify our components uniquely, and it improves the modularity of the application. Okay, it improves the modularity of the application. Next, so observe here, I have two, in the two ways I have explained. Version 1. Okay, from pack 1 import to module 1. Okay, so if you observe here, here pack 1 I have taken module 1. So from pack 1, okay, inside pack 1 I am importing module 1. So on the module 1 I am calling f1 function, so that it will executing. So this is the version 1. So version 2 means import pack 1 dot module 1. Okay, import pack 1 dot module 1. So on that pack 1 dot module 1 dot f1 means so that it will be executed. So where module 1 is defined in this function, in this module it is defined. Okay, next. Clear? So this is what we discussed as part of in the last session. So today we are going to discuss about the OOPS concept. Okay, today we are going to discuss about the OOPS concept. So first is nothing but let me write the first OOPS. Okay, let me write the OOPS. So OOPS means object oriented programming. Object oriented programming. Object oriented programming. So okay, now we are discussing about object oriented programming means. So in the last session we discussed what is that. So you may raise the question, up to now in the previous sessions what we discussed this many concepts, these are related to what? So these are, we can say, as a FOP, function oriented programming. Okay, let me write one note here. Up to now we discussed we discussed our concept is nothing but FOP, function oriented programming. Function oriented programming. So up to now we discussed nothing but function oriented programming. That is nothing but what? FOP. So now we have started the cinema is the OOPS. Okay, OOPS means object oriented programming. So if you observe here in the starting, when I have started Python, so here I have explained where we can use Python and what is the use of Python. So here I have explained Python we can use as some ways. Okay, if you observe here, function programming features from C, object oriented programming features from C++ Java, scripting language features from Perl and shell script. So first cinema is completed as a functional oriented programming. Okay, first is completed functional programming features from C, object oriented programming features from C++ to Java, right? Now we have to observe what is first class. Okay, we have started anyway object oriented programming. Okay, anyway we have started object oriented programming. Now we have to focus on first what is class. Okay, what is class? So what is class means normally in C++ and Java, you observe that what is class. Okay, so in the same way, Python also the same thing. There is no extra anything. Just we have to understand in the real world what is class, what is object. Just in the same way, keeping real world entities into programming is nothing but what object oriented programming. So class is nothing but in Python everything we can say as object only. Okay, in Python everything is an object only. Everything is an object. To create object, we required some model or plan or blueprint, which is nothing but what a class. Okay, nothing but which is nothing but what a thing but a class. In Python, everything is an object. To create objects, we require some model or plan or blueprint, okay, which is nothing but class. So, okay, class means in Python, everything we can write as an object. To create objects, we require some model or plan or blueprint, okay, which is nothing but class. Okay, class means it is fine. Class means in real world we can assume world is a class. So in that world we are objects. Okay, we are objects. So normally why we will write class? We can write class to represent properties and actions. We can write a class to represent properties, attributes, and actions, actions, behavior. of object. Next, the third point, properties can be represented by variables. Okay, so properties can be represented properties can be represented by variables. Okay, properties can be represented by variables, and actions can be represented by methods. Actions can be represented by methods. So finally, hence class contains both the variables and the methods. Okay, class contains both variables and the methods, right? So just we discussed class means this is the story. Okay, class means this is the story, right? Next, how to define a class. Okay, now how to define a class. How to define a class. Observe carefully. We discussed what is class. Now we are discussing how to define a class. Class we can represent. Okay, class we can represent by using class keyword. Class we can represent by using class keyword. Okay, class class name. Class name. Documentation string. So class name. Next, this is called what? Documentation string. Okay, this is nothing but what? Documentation string. Here next, what we can represent? Variables variables and methods. Variables comma methods, right? Variables means instance, static and local variables. Here instance method, static and class methods. Okay, instances, static and class methods. Okay, so in the interview you may get one question. Okay, in an interview you may get one question, is nothing but what is documentation string. Okay, what is documentation string? What is documentation string? What is documentation string? Documentation string is nothing but it is representing description of the class. Okay, documentation string. Okay, documentation string represents a documentation string represents a description of the class. Okay, documentation string represents a description of the class. Within the class, okay, within the class, doc string is always optional. Okay, within the class doc string is always optional. Okay, but it is recommended. Okay, but it is recommended to write a documentation string to represent the description of the class. And the next point, how we can access. Okay, we can access. Okay, we can access we can access we can get we can access okay we can access doc string. We can access doc string by using following two ways. We can access doc string by using following two ways. One is a print of. Okay, print of class name dot underscore dot underscore. Okay, next one, print of, okay, sorry, help of class name. By using these two ways we can access a documentation of the string. So whenever we are declaring a class, okay, make sure whenever we are declaring a class, we are representing documentation string. Okay, we are representing what? A documentation string. Documentation string means what? Means a documentation string represents the description of the class. It is going to describe the description of the class within the class doc string. So this doc string is always optional, but it is recommended to write the documentation string to represent the description of the class. So without writing documentation string also the code is going to work, but it is recommended to write a documentation string because to represent a description of the class. So you developed one application, so someone is going to refer your application, means this class is describes what, means based on this information is going to consider understand. So opposite person is going to understand easily by using this one. So this is not going to return anything, but it is recommended to write the documentation string. Okay, next, we can access docstring by using following two ways. Okay, we can access docstring by using following two ways. One is class name dot underscore underscore doc underscore underscore and the help of class name. Okay, help of what? Class name. Clear? This is nothing but what? Class. Okay, this is nothing but what? Class. Next, how to, what is an object? What is an object? What is object? Next, what is object? So just as of now, just remember the points, how to create class and what is object. Okay, so now here, what is object? Okay, what is object? Physical existence of a class is nothing but an object. Okay, physical existence, physical existence of a class is nothing but object. Physical existence of a class is nothing but object. We can create any number of objects. Okay, we can create any number of objects for a class. Physical existence of a class is nothing but object, but we can create any number of objects for a class. Okay, observe here, object means in the real world we are an object. Okay, but because we are having some nature. Okay, physical existence of a class is nothing but object. We can create any number of objects for a class, right? Next, syntax to create an object. Okay, syntax to create object, create a object, syntax to create a object. Reference variable, reference variable is equal to class name. Reference variable is equal to class name, right? Next, so for example, how to create the class means I have a class, student class is there. So reference variable is equal to s is equal to student. In this way, it is going to create the object. Okay, in this way, it is going to create the object. So this is nothing but what? Object and class. Okay, today we have discussed that concept is a class and object. Okay, today we discussed about class and object. In the next session, I am going to explain about what is reference variable, what is self variable. Okay, clear? So let me remind one more time. Class means in Python everything is an object, and how to define a class. Okay, how to define a class means a class name. So within the class, it is called a documentation string. Okay, within the class, it is documentation string. Documentation string is always optional, but it is recommended to write a documentation string because whenever you develop an application, if it is handed over to another person, so another person can easily understand. Purpose only, we have to write a documentation string. Okay, we have to write a documentation string. Next, what is documentation string means? Documentation string represents a description of the class. Within the class, doc string is always optional, but it's recommended to write a documentation string to represent a description of the class. We can access doc string always by using following two ways. One is to print class name dot underscore underscore doc or help of class name. Okay. Next, what is object means? Physical existence of a class is nothing but what a object. So we can create any number of objects for a class. Syntax to create object. Okay, syntax to create a object. Reference variable is equal to class name. For example is equal to s is equal to student. Okay, s is equal to student. Right? Thank you, friends. Thanks for watching this video. If you are having any questions or queries, please post your query in the comment section or reach out to my email ID in the given description. Please, friends, thanks for watching. Thanks for please subscribe to my channel for if you are watching my channel for the first time. Thank you.